So like I was saying earlier, we use like these 1:1,000 scale models just to start to understand the strategy and the thinking for the project. So we start to move on the right track, testing different options to understand, what's a good idea and what's a bad idea. And so at Bondi Surf Club, you had the original 1934 building here at the front. This is the beach. And then over time, a series of additions have been added, kind of like ad hoc additions, and it started to kind of sprawl out and create this large footprint that starts to overtake the park. And it confuses the relationship with the pavilion next door. And so in the DA before us, by a previous architect, they basically took the footprint of those ad hoc additions and made it into a large 2-level building that really started to overwhelm the original heritage. So from there we thought, okay, how do we deal with this issue? How do we fix this problem? And we looked at, okay, what if we made an addition that was a more comfortable proportions, that was the same width as the original building, provided this more open space with the pavilion, so we have 2 clear and distinct buildings. And then we thought, okay, what if we take this idea further? What if we take those additions and actually make them distinct and separate? So rather than having it right on the back of the original heritage building, we move it back, and so you have these 2 buildings sitting in the round, celebrating the original heritage with this exciting courtyard in between. And when you reflect on the conservation management plan, it actually very strongly supported an idea like that the building should be distinct and separate. And so when you start to think about the context and how these things are interrelated, if you look at the Bondi Pavilion, it too is actually a courtyard building, which is really exciting, So we start to understand the unique personality of that place. What is the architecture of Bondi Beach? It actually has a sense of courtyards, places to be protected out of the strong winds that come off Bondi Beach. Bondi Beach is actually a south-facing building, south-facing beach, and so at times it gets very, very windy and quite intense because of the landscape. And so if you look at Bondi Beach Public School, it too is actually a courtyard building. And so you've got these kind of series or pattern of buildings all about courtyards. And we really wanted to connect in with that unique character of Bondi Beach. And you can see from those massing models how that kind of thought and that strategic process can result in a really clear architectural idea that works functionally for the club, because they get a very large underground basement behind the original heritage building and new additions at the back. But it also significantly improves the public domain with a much larger park and a much better connection between the surf club and the pavilion. So this is how we use these models to kind of think about these strategic ideas, and you get these really exciting and wonderful outcomes. And then over time, that develops from a very kind of basic massing into a beautiful detail building that still has that wonderful idea about a courtyard and these two buildings, old and new, distinct and separate, balanced in proportions, a fantastic outcome for the community, and also a really great functional outcome for the club and its needs. So as I was saying there, that kind of clarity of thought really reflected in the feedback we got from the community. It was about a balance. The proposal was balanced. It was about supporting the public domain, improving the public domain, making the parkland bigger, and it was also about providing the functional needs of the club. And when we got the DA, it was actually approved. The DA was approved for Bondi Surf Club without objection. There was 0 negative comments from the community. That's an incredible outcome for such a landmark project on Bondi Beach, which is iconic internationally. And we really achieved that through clarity of communication. It was, these architectural ideas that were very logical, balanced with a really clear communication strategy to the community, and you get a fantastic outcome like this, which had 0 objections on the DA. So communicating with clarity is really important to get the right outcome.